In the world of special operations, reputation is everything. Every trident, every patch, every scar tells a story. But what happens when a soldier walks into the most secure room in the Pentagon, with no rank, no uniform, and a file that's completely empty? This is the story of the ghost who didn't exist, the woman who broke the unspoken rules, and the day the toughest Navy SEALs in the world learned that heroes don't always wear a name tag. The air inside the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC briefing room at the Pentagon, was recycled cold and smelled faintly of stale coffee and high-grade anxiety. It was a room where maps changed borders and people disappeared with the stroke of a pen. Lieutenant Commander Brody Miller tapped his pen against the polished oak table. He was the definition of modern warfare excellence, team leader of DevGru SEAL Team 6. 6 deployments, a Silver Star, and a jawline that looked like it had been chiseled from granite. Around him sat his squad, Tex, the sniper, Wall, the heavy weapons specialist, and Cypher, their comms guy. They were the apex predators, and they knew it. "Admiral's late," Tex grumbled, leaning back in his chair, spinning a combat knife on the table. "This better not be another diplomatic escort mission. I didn't train for 10 years to babysit ambassadors." "Stow it," Brody said sharply. "If Holloway called us in on a Sunday, it's not diplomatic. It's a crisis." The heavy steel doors hissed open. The room went silent. But it wasn't Admiral Holloway who walked in. It was a woman. She looked to be in her late 40s, perhaps early 50s. She wore civilian clothes that were aggressively nondescript, a grey windbreaker, dark tactical cargo pants that had seen better days, and heavy hiking boots. Her hair was steel grey, pulled back into a severe, no-nonsense bun. Her face was a map of hard, living, sun-weathered skin, and a faint, jagged white line running from her left ear down to her jaw. She didn't look at the SEALs. She didn't acknowledge the room. She simply walked to the far end of the table, pulled out a chair, the Admiral's chair, and sat down. She placed a beat-up metal coffee thermos on the table with a dull thud. Brody stared at her, blinking. The disrespect was palpable. "Excuse me, ma'am," Brody said, his voice dripping with polite condescension. "I think you're in the wrong room. Janitorial staff usually waits until the briefing is over." The woman slowly unscrewed the lid of her thermos. She poured a cup of black coffee steam, rising into the cold air. She took a sip, her eyes fixed on the blank projector screen. She didn't blink. "Ma'am," Brody said louder this time, standing up. His stature was imposing, 6'4" of muscle. "This is a top-secret SCI-level briefing. You need to leave, now, or I will have the MPs remove you." Tex chuckled. "Easy, boss. Maybe she's the Admiral's secretary." The woman finally turned her head. Her eyes were an unsettling shade of icy blue, devoid of fear, devoid of warmth. They were the eyes of a shark, cruising deep water. "Sit down, Lieutenant," she said. Her voice was like gravel crunching under tires. Low, raspy. Brody bristled. "Who the hell do you think you are? I'm the reason you're not going to die in the next 48 hours, she replied calmly. Before Brody could explode, the side door opened. Admiral Holloway entered. He was a 3-star admiral, a man who commanded entire fleets. Brody snapped to attention. His team followed suit. "Admiral!" Brody barked. "We have a civilian breach. I was just about to—" "At ease, Miller," Holloway said, waving a hand dismissively. He looked tired. He walked past his best men and stopped in front of the woman sitting in his chair. Brody watched, stunned, as the Admiral, a man who ate nails for breakfast, nodded respectfully to the woman. "Sarah," the Admiral said softly, "I didn't think you'd come." "You used the code Tom," she said, using the Admiral's first name. "You know the rules. You use the code, I show up. What's the mess? Holloway sighed and turned to the confused SEALs. Gentlemen, sit down. Brody sat, but his eyes never left the woman named Sarah. Admiral, with all due respect, who is this? We don't work with contractors. And we certainly don't work with civilians who look like they should be teaching high school history. Holloway dimmed the lights. The projector flared to life. A map of the Hindu Kush Mountains in Afghanistan appeared specifically, the treacherous Pech Valley. 3 days ago, Holloway began his voice, grim. A CIA paramilitary team went dark in this sector. They were carrying a drive containing the identities of every deep cover asset we have in the Middle East. If that drive gets decrypted, we lose a decade of intelligence, and a lot of good people die. Standard recovery op, Brody noted. We fly in, grab the drive, fly out. Not this time, the woman spoke up. She stood and walked to the screen. She didn't use a laser pointer. She used a scarred finger to trace a ridgeline. The valley is rigged. Thermal sensors, pressure plates, and overlapping fields of fire from 3 DSHK heavy machine gun nests, here, here, and here. She tapped the map with authority. Intel says that area is clear, Brody argued, feeling his authority slipping. Your intel is wrong, she said flatly. I walked that ridgeline in '98. The terrain naturally funnels sound. If you take a Black Hawk in, they'll hear you 10 miles out. If you hike in the standard route, you'll be dead before you breach the tree line. Brody scoffed. 1998, lady, that was almost 30 years ago. Things change. Satellites don't lie. She turned to him. Satellites don't see inside caves, Lieutenant. And warlords don't change their kill zones when they work. Admiral, Brody pleaded, I cannot plan a mission based on the gut feeling of a woman who hasn't seen a battlefield since the Clinton administration. What is her rank? What is her unit? Holloway looked at Brody, then at Sarah. She doesn't have a rank, Miller. Not anymore. Then she's a liability, Brody snapped. Sarah reached into her pocket. The room tensed. Wall put a hand near his sidearm. She pulled out a tarnished silver Zippo lighter. She flicked it open, the flame dancing in the dark room. I'm going with you, she stated. Absolutely not. Brody stood up again. I lead this team. I decide the roster. I am not taking a geriatric tourist into a hot zone. You're taking her, Holloway cut in his voice, leaving no room for argument, because she's the only person alive who knows the tunnel system under that fortress. She built it. The room went silent. She built it, Cypher asked, confused. I was deep cover, Sarah said, snapping the lighter shut. Long time ago. I lived in that valley for 2 years. I know every rock, every shadow. You want to get that drive back? You follow me. You want to die in a burning helicopter. Listen to your lieutenant. Brody's face turned crimson. I need to see her file. I need to know who I'm working with. Holloway hesitated. You can't. Why is it redacted? No, Sarah said, picking up her thermos. It doesn't exist. No ID, no record, no past. As far as the United States Navy is concerned, Lieutenant, I never happened. She walked toward the door. Wheels up in 2 hours. Bring your winter gear, boys. It gets cold in the grave. The flight to Bagram Airfield was agonizingly quiet. Usually the team would be joking, checking gear, playing cards. But the presence of Sarah sucked the oxygen out of the C-17 Globemaster. She sat apart from them, cleaning a rifle she had requisitioned, an old-school M14 enhanced battle rifle. It was heavy, outdated, and loud. Techs who used a state-of-the-art suppressed sniper system looked at it with disdain. That thing belongs in a museum, Tex whispered to Wall. Just like her. Brody walked over to her. She was sharpening a combat knife, the scrape of steel on stone, the only sound in the bay. "Look," Brody said, trying to be diplomatic. "I don't know what hold you have over the Admiral. Maybe you were hot stuff back in the Cold War. But this is modern warfare. We use comms, we use drones, we move fast. If you fall behind, we leave you. That's the protocol." Sarah didn't look up. "If I fall behind, you shoot me. Don't let them take me alive." Brody paused. "I'm serious." "So am I." She looked up. "You think this is a game, Miller? You think because you have a flag on your shoulder and a book deal waiting for you back home that you're invincible? The men holding that drive, they are the ghosts of the monsters we failed to kill 30 years ago. They don't care about your technology." "I care about my men," Brody said, leaning in, "and I don't trust you." "Good," she said. "Trust gets you killed. Competence keeps you alive." 2 hours later, they were in a stealth Black Hawk, skimming the mountain peaks under the cover of a moonless night. The plan was a halo-high altitude, low opening jump, followed by a 5-mile hike to the target compound. "Target approaching," the pilot's voice crackled. 2 minutes. Brody did his final checks. "Masks on oxygen, check." The team signaled ready. Sarah pulled on a black balaclava and adjusted her goggles. She looked indistinguishable from the men, now except for the slight frame. The ramp lowered. The freezing wind howled into the cabin. "Go, go, go." They leapt into the void. The freefall was exhilarating. Brody watched his altimeter. At 4,000 feet, he pulled his chute. The canopy snapped open. He drifted silently toward the landing zone LZ, a small plateau surrounded by jagged rocks. He landed rolled and unclipped. "Sound off," he whispered into his comms. "Tech secure. Wall secure. Cipher secure." "Asset," Brody asked. Silence. "Sarah report." Static. "Damn it," Brody hissed. She missed the LZ, probably drifted into the canyon. Cipher track her beacon. "I can't, sir," Cipher stammered. "She doesn't have a beacon. She turned it off." "She what?" Suddenly, a hand clamped over Brody's mouth from behind. Before he could react, he was dragged backward into the shadow of a boulder. He reached for his knife, but a voice hissed in his ear. "Don't move!" It was Sarah. Brody ripped her hand away, furious. "Are you insane? I was about to gut you." "Look," she pointed a gloved finger toward the ridge above them, the exact spot where Brody had planned to rally the team. Brody engaged his night vision goggles. Green phosphorus illuminated the ridge. There were heat signatures, 4 of them. Lying prone. Waiting. "Ambush," Brody whispered, his blood running cold. "How did you know?" "I smelled the tobacco," Sarah whispered. "Cheap Russian cigarettes. The wind drifts down the canyon. If we had landed there, we'd be pink mist right now." Brody swallowed hard. He hadn't smelled a thing. "They know we're here," Sarah said. "Your intel was leaked. This isn't a recovery mission, Miller. It's a trap." "We abort," Brody said instantly. "We call for extraction." "No signal in the valley," Sarah corrected. "And the chopper won't come back until the all-clear flare. We have 2 choices. We freeze here and die when the sun comes up, or we finish the mission." Brody looked at his team. They were looking at him, fear flickering in their eyes for the first time. They were the best, but they were blind. He looked at Sarah. She wasn't looking at him. She was scanning the perimeter, calm as a statue. "Lead the way," Brody said, hating the taste of the words. The infiltration was a nightmare. The terrain was brutal loose shale that threatened to slide with every step. Sarah moved differently than the SEALs. They moved with aggressive speed. She moved like water. She flowed over obstacles, making no sound. She led them through a narrow fissure in the rock, a path that wasn't on any map. It bypassed the main gate, and the heavy machine gun nests. "How do you remember this?" Wall whispered, panting under the weight of his machine gun. "I spent 6 months in a hole right there." She pointed to a dark crevice. "Watching this compound, you memorize the cracks in the wall when it's the only TV you have." They reached the perimeter wall. It was mud brick, 12 feet high. "Cypher, cut the camera feed," Brody ordered. "On it." Cypher tapped his wrist computer. "Looping the footage now. We have 60 seconds. Brody boosted Tex up. One by one, they slipped over the wall and into the courtyard. The compound was silent, but it felt wrong. Too easy. "Building 4, Brody signaled. "That's where the server room is." They stacked up on the door. Brody breached. The door flew open. They flooded the room, weapons raised. "Clear left, clear right." The room was empty. No servers, no guards. Just a single laptop sitting on a wooden chair in the center of the room. "It's a setup," Tex yelled. "IED, click!" The lights in the courtyard flooded on. Sirens wailed. "Contact front!" Brody screamed as the windows shattered inward. Gunfire erupted from all sides. The team dived for cover behind upturned heavy oak tables. Bullets chewed through the wood, sending splinters flying. They were pinned down, taking fire from the balcony above and the doorway. "We're boxed in," Wall shouted, firing a burst from his saw. "I can't get a suppression angle." Brody popped up to fire, but a round slammed into his chest plate, knocking the wind out of him. He fell back, gasping. "Boss is down," Cypher yelled. The enemy was closing in. Men with AK-47s were rushing the door. This was it, the fatal funnel. Suddenly, a thunderous boom echoed through the hall. It wasn't the rapid crack of an M4. It was the heavy, distinctive roar of an M14. One of the attackers in the doorway flew backward as if hit by a truck. Boom, boom, boom! 3 shots, 3 kills. Sarah wasn't behind cover. She was moving. She was walking across the open floor, firing the heavy rifle from the shoulder, ignoring the incoming fire. She moved with a terrifying rhythm. Step-fire kill, step-fire kill. She wasn't using modern tactical movements. She was using something older, something raw. She was drawing their fire, making herself the target. "She's suicide rushing them," Tex screamed. "Cover her!" Brody wheezed, forcing himself up. Sarah reached the base of the balcony, where the heavy fire was coming from. She didn't stop. She pulled a grenade, cooked it for 2 seconds, and lobbed it blindly over the railing. Crack thump. The screaming stopped. "Move up!" Sarah yelled, her voice cutting through the ringing in their ears. "We push through the kitchen. The HVT high-value target is in the basement." I saw him run. The SEALs trained to lead found themselves following the grey-haired woman without hesitation. She kicked open the kitchen door, transitioning to her sidearm. They descended into the basement. It was a labyrinth of tunnels. "How do you know he's here?" Brody asked, reloading. "Because rats always run to the deepest hole," she replied. They cornered the target in a storage room. He was a middle-aged man, clutching a hard drive, surrounded by 4 bodyguards. The bodyguards raised their weapons. "Drop it," Brody screamed. The guards hesitated. Then their leader looked at Sarah. His eyes went wide. He said something in Pashto, his voice trembling. "Zagruna." The blood drained from the faces of the other guards. They lowered their weapons. They dropped them. Brody was confused. These were hardened fanatics. They didn't surrender. "What did he say?" Brody asked. Sarah walked forward, holstering her weapon. She looked at the leader. "He called me the witch." She took the hard drive from the trembling man's hands. "Secure them," she told Brody. "We're leaving." The extraction was chaotic, but successful. The sunrise over the Hindu Kush was blindingly beautiful, painting the bloody snow in shades of pink and gold. As the helicopter lifted off, leaving the smoking compound behind, The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by exhaustion. Brody looked at Sarah. She was sitting near the ramp, looking out at the mountains. She looked small again. The terrifying Valkyrie of the night before was gone, replaced by the tired woman in the grey windbreaker. Back at the base in Bagram, the medics swarmed them. Brody waved them off. "Check her first," he pointed to Sarah. But when he turned, she was gone. "Where did she go?" Brody asked Cypher. "I don't know, boss. She just slipped away while we were unloading gear." Brody grabbed the hard drive and marched to the Tactical Operations Center. Admiral Holloway was there, looking relieved. "Mission accomplished, Admiral," Brody said, placing the drive on the desk. "But we need to talk." "I assume you have questions," Holloway said, pouring 2 drinks. "Who is she?" Brody demanded. "And don't give me the no-file crap." She cleared a room with an M14 like she was clearing brush. The enemy surrendered just by looking at her. "Who is she?" Holloway took a sip of whiskey. He opened a drawer and pulled out a physical file. It was old-yellowed and stamped "Eyes Only." "You know the history of the SEALs Miller. You know about Draper Kaufman. You know about Vietnam." "Yes, sir." "Well, there's a chapter they don't teach you in Barracks," Holloway said. "In 1989, there was a pilot program, a test to see if women could handle the training. It was off the books, black budget. They selected 10 women. Only 1 finished." Brody stared at the file. "But women weren't allowed in combat roles until recently." "Officially, no," Holloway said. "But there are missions where a 6'4" American male sticks out like a sore thumb. We needed operators who could blend in, who could walk into a marketplace in Damascus or a village in Chechnya and not be noticed. We needed ghosts." Holloway slid a photo across the desk. It was a grainy black-and-white picture from 1990, a muddy young woman standing in the surf at Coronado, holding a boat overhead with 6 men. Her face was set in a grimace of pure determination. "Her name is Sarah Vance," Holloway said. "Holloway. She didn't just pass Buds Miller. She set the obstacle course record that stood for 12 years. She was the first. But because of the politics, because of the secrecy, she never got the trident. She never got the ceremony. She operated in the shadows for 20 years. While you were in elementary school, she was dismantling cartels in South America." Brody felt a knot in his stomach. He had mocked her. He had called her a tourist. "Where is she now?" Brody asked. "She's gone Miller. That's what she does. She comes in, she fixes the impossible, and she vanishes. She doesn't want the glory." Brody stood up. "I need to find her." "Why?" "Because I owe her a salute." Brody ran out of the office. He checked the airfield. He checked the mess hall. Nothing. He ran to the main gate of the base. He saw a solitary figure walking down the dusty road toward a waiting civilian taxi. "Sarah," Brody yelled. She stopped but didn't turn around. Brody jogged up to her, stopping a few feet away. He was out of breath still in his combat gear, covered in dust and dried blood. She was back in her plain clothes, her bag slung over her shoulder. She turned. Her eyes were tired. "You did good, kid," she said softly. "You kept your head." Brody looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the scars not as blemishes, but as medals. "You were the first," Brody said. "You're a SEAL." She smiled, a sad, fleeting thing. "I'm just a retired school teacher from Ohio Lieutenant. You should check your records." She turned to open the car door. "Mom." Brody barked, his voice cracking with emotion. He snapped his heels together. He straightened his back. And right there in the dust of a foreign country, the leader of SEAL Team 6 delivered the crispest, most respectful salute of his life. Sarah paused. She looked at him. For a second the mask slipped, and Brody saw the pride in her eyes. She didn't salute back, civilians don't salute, but she nodded, a slow, deep nod of acknowledgement from one warrior to another. "Watch your 6-miller," she whispered. She got in the car. The taxi drove off, disappearing into the haze of the desert. Brody stood at attention until the car was gone. Tex and the rest of the team ran up behind him. "Did you find her?" "Who was she?" Tex asked, winded. Brody lowered his hand. He looked at the empty road where the legend had vanished. "She was the one who paved the road we walk on," Brody said quietly. "Let's go home. Sarah Vance may not be in the history books. Her name isn't etched in stone, and she'll never wear the trident on her chest. But true heroism isn't about the recognition. It's about the mission. It's about doing the hard work in the dark so others can live in the light. If this story reminded you that heroes come in all forms, smash that like button and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, because we have more untold stories from the shadows coming your way. See you in the next one.